Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What up? What up? What up? I appreciate y'all checking me out. As always, just want to come here. Ain't been here in a while. Ain't really been watching too much hoop, to be honest with you. But nonetheless, I feel like I should come on here and, if nothing else, give my thoughts on the first day of the play-in game. And I really didn't get to watch all of the games. I saw the second half for the Lakers. What I will say about that, I think that the absence of Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels, it really hurt as far as depth goes. I see Karl-Anthony Towns got into a little bit of foul trouble early on in the game. I think he finished the game with 5 fouls. Luckily, he was able to not foul out, make the game a little more interesting. I'm really concerned with Anthony Edwards as far as maybe he's injured. I'm not really sure what's going on with him. I really thought this was a big game for him. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Anthony Edwards is an all-NBA player. I would say as far as the all-NBA second team, and maybe I'll explain why later. I think he's an all-NBA first teamer. Defense. I'm sorry. First team all-NBA defense, or whatever it is that they call it. But he's on that first defensive team for sure. If I'm not mistaken, he led the league, and last time I checked, he was leading the league in steals. And I think overall he played really well offensively in the absence of Karl-Anthony Towns, helping them get to this playoff spot. There's obviously something going on with his shoulder. He looked real timid. But the thing about Anthony Edwards is that if he want to be a superstar in this league the way that a lot of people feel like he will, and I don't want to say that he won't, because I really like what he is doing on both sides of the ball. I think he's one of the best in the league, one of the best two-way players in the league. I honestly do. And maybe that off shoulder is just a little. I think it was his left shoulder that was a little. I think it had tape on it or something like that. So and he's coming off a little bit of injury as well. But I don't care if you out there on the floor, you got to contribute. If you out there on the floor, you got to contribute. Or maybe it was on Coach Chris Finch to go ahead and get him out of that game because he was not given any productivity throughout the whole game. I mean, he had a couple of key moments, but all in all, they lost the game because of turnovers. Outside of Anthony Edwards, outside of Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels not being there, they lost the game because of turnovers. Shout out to Mike Conley. He knocked down those clutch 3 free throws at the end of the game, which it was maybe a questionable call, but Anthony Davis didn't really allow for too much landed space. All in all, whatever. Good W by the Lakers. Dennis Schroeder, somebody gonna cash Dennis Schroeder out. I mean, I can imagine that Dennis Schroeder will be getting paid this season, or next season. I'm pretty sure he's a unrestricted free agent, I'm sorry. And the Lakers don't own his bird right. So Schroeder will probably, I like his IQ. I like his skill set. I think Schroeder is a pretty solid point guard, starter on any team in the league, and I think that he'll end up landing a pretty significant contract next year with somebody. The Miami Heat, they got they got to figure that out. They got to figure that out. These guys that they got coming in, I don't know if it's because of whatever foreign relations and all that little extra shit. I really don't know, but they're going to have to figure that one out. No reason Kyle Lowry was the highest scoring, and I like Kyle Lowry, but no reason that he was the highest scoring player on that team today. There's been trade rumors about Trae Young. I like the way he handled that. He said, maybe not. All right, and I really do. I think that was a good answer. I don't think you always have to share every little detail, you know what I mean, with the media. Speaking of media, oh, one more thought. Well, another thought is as far as the Timberwolves go. I noticed that in the third quarter, it was a lot of cutting, a lot of movement, a lot of back screens. And I don't know why they got away from that. I don't know if those were just some set design plays, but they really got away from that. And I think that's what allowed them to take the lead or have such I think that gave them the advantage over the Lakers. I don't know why they stopped doing it, but they stopped doing it. And the offense became kind of stagnant. You're relying on guys like Kyle Anderson to run the offense and make plays as far as scoring go. And, you know, with Anthony Edwards not being able to perform at his peak level or his best level, I just think that they should have kept with that. They should have kept going, cutting. I think that's the way to beat the Lakers. Move these guys around, especially if you got Bron in the game. You know, the Lakers are really already not very good defense. They're not a very good defensive team outside of Anthony Davis, outside of the other guy, the injured guy. I forget his name, Jared Vanderbilt. I think Jared Vanderbilt is a guy with a lot of potential, but he just can't really stay healthy. Defensively, I think he's one of their best defenders, especially as far as the perimeter goes. Well, particularly the perimeter. And again, you got Anthony Davis out there he's gonna like to paint down and alter some shots. Outside of that, if you can get this Laker team moving around, LeBron, we know LeBron, them knees they don't work the same, so he's not gonna do too much cutting and moving around. And if you can take advantage of that, you know, you should be pretty successful. And I don't know why the Timberwolves got away from that, but they did. So now I guess they're looking at playing the Pelicans this weekend, Friday, which I'm not so sure the Lakers really want to see. I'm not so sure the Lakers really want to see Memphis. That's a lot to have to deal with. That's a lot to have to deal with. You got a young, hungry, energetic team. I will say that it's a pretty good matchup. I'll say that, especially size-wise, because realistically with Steven Adams being injured, which that's a guy I don't really believe he'll be with Memphis next season. He'll land somewhere, but I don't think he'll be with Memphis. I think he kind of slowed that team down. Jaren Jackson he's a really good defender, but he's way too physical. And for whatever reason, the Lakers are getting a million foul calls a game over the past month or so. So I would expect him to do a lot of fouling out. I expect in the best of 7 series, I would expect Jaren Jackson to foul out 2 times. All right. Sometimes he gets just a little too physical. You do have the fact that sometimes the Grizzlies get pretty cold. They get pretty cold shooting the ball. I don't think Dillon Brooks is a very good offensive player. I think he is more of a Pat Bev kind of guy. I'm not, I mean, it is what it is. And that's another guy I really don't, depending on how far they get, I don't expect Dillon Brooks to be there next season either, to be honest with you. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that series turn out. I honestly think it could go. I think it could be in the Lakers' favor, honestly. If the Lakers can get these other guys going, the problem is, again, there's really not a lot of defense. And these dudes in Memphis, they're going to be gunning. They're going to be running. They're going to be gunning. They're going to try to take, you know what I mean? They're going to try to take it to the Lakers. They hungry. They're going to try to take it to the Lakers. All right. Not really sure how that's going to work for them. But, if we don't know nothing else, we know that they're going to be trying to take it to the Lakers. And maybe that'll get in their way. Maybe their aggression will work against them a little bit, right? There's not really anybody on that team who can do much with Bron as far as getting downhill. Again, I think the absence of Steven Adams is going to hurt those dudes. You got Kenny Lofton, who is a pretty decent, he's a solid offensive player, but I question him on the defensive end for one, and the dude don't look to pass the ball much. All right, he a young guy that could play against them too. It's already pretty much a young team. It's a very young team. They have a very young mentality. Obviously, we don't have to talk about what's happened over the past couple of weeks or whatever. But it's a pretty young team. All right. They do have a little bit of experience. They do have a little bit of experience as far as the playoffs go. But it's still a young team and they get pretty emotional. I think that could work against them, honestly. I like Tyus Jones. I really like Tyus Jones. I think he's a starter on any team in the league. But we'll see. I mean, we'll just have to see how that work out. I think it could go anyway. If I had to bet, I'm going to get an edge to Memphis. I got to get an edge to the youth. So we'll see how that go. Pretty much unrelated to what happened today in the play-in. I was going back and forth with a couple of dipshits on Instagram about Joel Embiid and James Harden being the scoring leader and the assist leader, respectively. I just don't agree with that right there, man. I don't agree with that shit. I think Jayson Tatum, I think they should change that rule. A lot of people might disagree with me, but it's been, I mean, it's just bullshit. I mean, to me, honestly, it's bullshit. You play less games. You might score more points per game, but you also play less games. You got a guy like Jayson Tatum who's played more games than Joel Embiid, right? And he scored more points on the season. That's the scoring. To me, that's the scoring champ. Same thing with James Harden. Trae Young and Jokic both have more assists total on the season than James Harden, right? That's not a knock on neither one of these dudes. If you're a Philly fan and you might catch this, it's not a knock on Joel Embiid. I think Joel Embiid offensively is the most dominant player in the league, especially when healthy. Maybe not on both ends of the ball. I do have some criticism about Joel Embiid, but offensively, I think he's the most dominant player in the league, right? Him, then you got Giannis, but I definitely put Embiid first. When this dude is healthy, he's big. He got the athleticism. He can shoot the ball. He's strong. I think that he is the most dominant offensive player in the league currently, especially when healthy, right? James Harden, again, is another guy that I got a lot of respect on. I think James Harden is one of the best offensive players that the league has ever seen, right? But he's not the rightful assist champ. And I'm sorry. You can feel however you want to feel about it. And I think that I really hope that with the next CBA, they go ahead and change that rule. I think the title should go to the one with the most on the season, not the one with the most average, because we're really rewarding something that shouldn't be rewarded. And, you know, you got some dipshits who say, well, rest is always going to be a part of the game. Like, yeah, I get it. Rest is going to be a part of the game. Even if I don't agree, rest is going to be a part of the game. But why should that take away for the one who didn't rest? You understand what I'm saying? Who still played more games, who still had more output. Again, Jokic and Trae Young had more assists on the season than James Harden did. I think James Harden finished number 3 or 4 or something like that. I think it was 3. But Trae Young finished number 1. Jokic was number 2. So obviously, in my opinion, Trae Young should be the assist leader. And it's kind of really fucked up because we players have these certain clauses in their contract and stuff like that to where if they win certain awards or have certain accolades, it triggers bonuses. You understand what I'm saying? And I think that is taken away from the guys who work harder, the guys who play more. And I just really would like to see that change. Side note, if you didn't know, with the new CBA, they changed it to where you have to play a minimum of 65 games in order to qualify for big awards. All right. So shout out to me for giving the NBA that idea. Shout out to me for giving the NBA that idea. Because you know, if you had these sports conversations with me, or if you watched enough of my channel, you know that you need a minimum of 65 games in order for me to qualify you, which is why I'll come back to Joel Embiid probably another time, especially for the fanboys. Listen, Joel Embiid, in my opinion, should not be the MVP. Now, I think he'll get it. I think Joel Embiid, I think he cried his way into it. He cried his way into the media's hearts in order to get an MVP. Obviously, you don't want to give a guy, you can't give it to Antetomkoumpo, because now you have to admit that he's the best player in the league. You have to admit it, whether he can shoot the ball or not. If Giannis was to win another MVP, you would have to crown him the best player in the league. If Jokic get it, now you taking away from other traditional bigs. You got guys like Shaq. You got guys like whatever. I'm not even going to say let's say Hakeem Olajuwon. You got some of these other guys who you'll have to look back and say, well, was Jokic better than them? Like, no, Jokic was not better than them, better than these guys. Was he better? Was he more well-rounded? Absolutely. Absolutely. Right? We know that Shaq during his time was the most dominant offensive player. We know that Hakeem during his time was one of the best, was probably the best two-way player in the league. So now you asking the question, is he better than Shaq? Is he better than Hakeem? Is he better than Robinson? Is he better than Timmy? And I think that's I think it's a little bit unfair, honestly, because no, the answer is no. All right. All of these guys that we just mentioned were champions. Jokic is not going to lead his team to a championship. But even still, if anybody was to win the MVP, honestly, I don't even, and maybe we can have this conversation another time, but I don't even necessarily think it should be either one of those guys as far as Giannis and Jokic. But it damn sure shouldn't be Embiid, because he's played less game than those two guys. If I had to call an MVP, I'm going to have to say Tatum, even though originally my thought was that, well, he's got a guy right next to him that's doing the same thing that he's doing. And that's not necessarily true. It's just not necessarily true once I go through and look at the stats, look at the numbers, whatever. I honestly believe that Jayson Tatum should be the rightful MVP. He's got the second best record in the league behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll do that another time, because I did the research on it maybe a couple of weeks back. I haven't been having the time or the energy to really be fucking around with this stuff too much, right? But maybe I'll break it down and I'll explain later on. Maybe sometime this weekend. I don't know. I'm a hardworking guy, right? Maybe I'll break it down and explain why I believe Jayson Tatum should be the MVP. Because it's really not that difficult when you start looking at it. Whatever the case may be, to the Philly fanboys, I don't think that Joel Embiid is the rightful MVP. If you look at their team record, just the simple fact that you got two quote unquote MVPs on that team, you got a former coach of the year, you got pretty good bench depth, you've got one of the best defensive teams in the league. Why are you not at least number 2 in the league as far as your record go? Because to me, Philly we looking at the same thing. We looking at a team that's making their way. We looking at a second round exit. I mean, that's my prediction. That's what I believe is gonna happen. Doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna happen. I've been wrong before. But we're not looking at, I don't think they'll make it to the conference finals. These dudes not making it to no conference finals or no NBA finals. I just can't listen, you got 3 of the biggest, you got at least 2. I'm going to leave Joel Embiid out of this, because we're talking about a guy, again, the most dominant offensive player in the league. He's not a very good rebounder. We'll talk about that another time. Defensively, he can get a little bit lazy. He's out of shape, so he gas out easily. Same thing with James Harden, not a very good defender. He's tough, strong guy, not a very good defender. And we know Doc Rivers, under pressure, always fold as a head coach. So it'll be interesting to see who steps up and be the leader of that team when it's time to have a leader, because we know James Harden is a disappearing artist. This dude is fucking David Blaine. We know how he get it. And again, I like James Harden, one of the best offensive players ever. Let me share this with you, though. Let me share this with you before I get out of here, because I didn't really want to make this a longer. When basketball first dropped, meaning when Michael Jordan came into the league his rookie year, just bear with me for a second here. The scoring title went to Bernard King, to Sacramento. It went to Bernard King, right? However, I think he only played about 56 games that year. And it was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 other guys who had more total points on the season. I don't even think you got to guess who number 1 was. I think everybody already know. Yet, Bernard King was the one who ended up with the scoring title. All right. 56 games. I think the dude averaged damn near 40 points per game or something like that. You know, simple basic math to let you know that the less games come on, man. I failed every math class I ever took, but still I can understand simple math, right? So this is why, all in all, I think that rule should be changed. Is robbing guys out of their accolades. And listen, it's not the only time it's didn't happen. It's happened with Chris Paul. Chris Paul didn't won assist champs, even though he's played less games. They robbed John Wall out of the assist title. Same thing happened with LeBron. LeBron won a scoring champ one season, and it should have went to somebody else. I mean, it honestly should have went to somebody else. I can't remember exactly who it was. It'll come to me. Or maybe I, touch back up on the topic another time, because again, I did a whole report about it. I just never really put it on wax. Maybe you would do a little bit of investigative work and check it out for yourself, and let me know down in the comments who it was that they robbed that scoring title from. But it shouldn't have been LeBron, not that season. And it's other times, rebounding champs. It's just other times. It happened throughout the league, and I don't agree with it. So hopefully with the new CBA, not this CBA that they just renewed, I think we got another 7 years on it. I know that sounds crazy. We waiting 7 years for a new CBA, but that's okay. That's okay. I just like to see the rules changed, and I like to see it fair across the board. Let's give it to the one with the most on the season, whatever it is, steals, rebounds, assists, let's just give it to the one who had the most on the season. I think it's only right. I think it's only fair. Anyway, look like I don't know if that cut off or not. Anyway, let me get out of here, man. It's a little late. I just wanted to come in and give my 10 cents on the first play-in game, the first day of the play-in game, first day of the playoffs, whatever you want to call it. Even though I didn't really get to watch the first game or whatever. That's okay. Hopefully I'll be able to catch, all of them the next day. Hopefully one day we'll come and we'll do full coverage on all the games, all the playoff games throughout the day. Obviously I can't stream them, but I'll definitely be here throughout the playoffs telling you all what I think. And also I'm going to give my all NBA teams. I already got them written out. I'll give my all NBA teams. Hopefully I'll be able to give my all defensive teams. Shout out to Mikal Bridges, man. Shout out to Mikal Bridges. I think Mikal Bridges is one of the best two-way players in the league. I think he's a model NBA player. And since he's left Phoenix, this guy's averaged 25 points per game. If I'm not mistaken, he now has more total points on a year than a lot of people, Kevin Durant being one of them. I'm not saying he's better than Kevin Durant, but he's came over to Brooklyn and he kind of held that team down, man. So shout out to Mikal Bridges. To me, that's my MVP on the season, just for the simple fact that he weathered the storm and he came in and he did exactly what I felt like he needed to do, take his game to the next level. Obviously, he couldn't do that playing behind. I mean, obviously playing behind Chris Paul, Devin Booker, right? They got great bench depth, or pretty decent bench depth, at least guys who gonna come in and shoot that ball. DeAndre Ayton was another guy getting more touches than him. I think that with Mikal Bridges, I still don't understand the 83 game thing, but I still think that Mikal Bridges, that's my end of the year award. Excuse me, I'm giving it to Mikal Bridges. I got Mikal Bridges, the end of the year MVP, for coming in. I think that his game is only going to get better. I'm very excited to see what happened with him next year and how they're able to build around him and possibly make the Nets a better team. All right. But I'm out of here, man. I'll catch y'all next time. All right. I appreciate you checking me out.